What's up, guys? Today I'll be talking about how a lot of times people will disguise disrespect as jokes and how to identify which one is which. So, the easiest way is basically just mirror what they do. Whatever they say to you or do to you, just do it back to them. And if they get mad, then it means their intention was to disrespect you. If they laugh it off, then probably they just meant it as a joke or they're doing Oscar acting. I'll give a few examples, and I've been guilty of doing this too. I mean, I was in elementary school, but I had a friend. His name was let's call him Dino. I would be like, "Hey, Dino," and he's like, "What?" And then I'd be like, "Nothing." And then I just do it like 3 or 4 more times, and then he's like, "What?" I'm like, "Nothing." But that's just between friends, right? It didn't get to the point where he was getting mad yet, and I just stopped because the joke was dead. A second example I can think of is when I was a kid. I lived in Asia and I slept in my grandparents' room on a really thin mattress on the ground, not on the bed. Anyway, my grandparents slept in bed, obviously, and my dad would come in and he would like talk to my grandparents, but for some reason, he would always step on my pillow, which it's like super easy to avoid. I mean, he would blame, oh, it's like, because he has like nearsightedness, he'd blame that. Well, I'd call him out for it. He was like, oh, it's obvious on like accident. Why are you being so sensitive? And obviously, my dad's a dickhead, so I mean, now I know because I'm older. But I mean, I guess it gave me some kind of anti-gaslight training as a kid. Because then when I did it back to him, like I would go to his room and like just start like stomping on his pillow with my bare feet. Like he'd get mad. So there you go. But you know, a lot of Asian dads are like that. They're kind of like bullies. I think it's called male chauvinism. In the West, I guess you could say it's like toxic masculinity. But it's basically a condition where the husband sees like the children and the wife as basically like pets, have to like submit to them, etc. In my case, my mom has a bad habit of just shit talking for no reason, pretty frequently. I'd say maybe like 2 3 times a day. Just say something to like hurt your confidence or ruin your mood, and then when you call her out for it, she'll be like, "Oh, why are you so sensitive?" It's like a gaslighting technique where you basically keep poking the bear or poking the person until you get a response, and then you're like, "Oh, like why are you getting angry?" And then eventually, obviously, I talked back to her and I did the same thing back to her. And, she got super mad. She'd be like, "Oh, you can't talk like that. Like, I'm your mom. You have to respect me, respect your elder." Asian culture. Now that I'm older, I try not to engage, just stone face with her, unless like she really gets on my nerves and I'll clap back and then, she gets triggered. But the thing is, with Asian parents, like, there's no winning. It doesn't matter if you're technically right. Like, even if you win, they're just going to keep yapping, yapping, yapping until you say that you understand, as long as you live under the roof. And then I think this is my fourth example, but you know how sometimes you have these toxic friendships where no matter what news you tell them, they always find a way to put you down. Like, say you got a haircut, you got new clothes, shoes, you did some kind of accomplishment, or you did something you thought was cool, and they'll be like, "Nah, that's lame." Like, mid, it's whatever. But if you do it back to them, they're like, "Oh my god, you're so toxic." And for my fifth example, it's when things get physical. So if they like start touching you, like jabbing you like this, like tapping you, or they're in your personal space, like breathing on your neck, just talking too close. Just if you feel like something's wrong, just trust your gut instinct. If you call them out for it, in some cases they might try to gaslight you and say you're being sensitive. Just do it back to them and see how they like it. And then if they get upset, then just say, "Why are you being so sensitive?" And lastly, this one should be obvious, but if they get violent, so if they're slapping, punching, kicking, anything that like causes you like physical pain, drop everything and beat the shit out of them. Whatever they do to you, do it back double, like so they don't mess with you again. That's how I learned my lesson. Because there's no reason that anyone should be putting their hands on you. And I think this mostly only works against like kids or like really gullible adults. I think when I was in elementary, there was this one like autistic kid, right? And then he was like friends with this bully guy. And then basically the bully would like slap him around and then he wouldn't do anything about it because it probably didn't register to him that it was disrespect and not just playful jokes. And probably that if he did call him out for it, he'd be like, "Oh no, this guy's not going to be my friend anymore because I'm like sensitive." And then the question is, what if they're way bigger than you? So let me tell you my story. In 7th grade, I was like 5'2", 80 or 90 pounds, like super lightweight. And then there was this one guy I was hanging with. He was like 6'3", tall Indian guy. He was like fat. He was at least 200 pounds, way bigger than me. There's no way I'd win in a fight. But I think it was the beginning of the school year where in the morning it was cold. We're sitting on the bleachers and just waiting for school to start. And he would just be there hanging out, right? And then maybe in his culture he's more like touchy. But he was explaining the story about something, right? I can't remember. And in the middle of the story, he started like slapping my face like this, like not super hard, like bam, but just enough to make like an impact sound. And I just like scratched his arm till it was bleeding. Because obviously I can't win in a fight. Like I have no fighting. My attack power was 0. But you know, I went Nine-Tail Fox on him. He just started like bleeding on the arms. And he's like, yo, he scratched the shit out of me. And he learned his lesson, and then he never did that again. Maybe in his household, his uncle or dad slap him around like that, and he's like channeling that into like someone smaller than him at school. But what's funny is later on in high school, I heard from like a different friend that went to the same elementary school as that tall Indian guy, like before he was like super tall. And then he basically smacked that dude's head with a skateboard because that dude was like a bully in the school, because I think he was just naturally taller than everybody. But I want to make it clear that not everything is disrespect, especially if it's between like friends. Like, you know for a fact like they're your friend. Sometimes you guys make playful banter, you know, you guys say messed up your mom jokes, racist jokes, whatever. Generally there's nothing there, it's just banter. But if it's like with a new group of people, and when they do or say something, you know, you feel like in your gut like something's wrong, usually you're right unless you're like super super sensitive. But also I think part of growing up is developing thicker skin, because if you go around super sensitive, getting offended by everything, no one wants to be around you and you're gonna have no friends. Oh yeah, I can make a whole nother video about this, but you know how they say when you hate someone you actually hate yourself, which sounds stupid, right? Let me give you an example. Let's say, oh no, this did happen. So in middle school, like growing up, I was super underweight, skinny. And you know, obviously American kids generally are like fatter. So, you know, they call me skinny, scrawny, whatever. And I could just be mad at them. Oh, like, why are they talking shit, man? I'm just trying to live. But the reality is, if I was at a normal weight or even jacked, they wouldn't have that as ammo, like to call me skinny. So sometimes, like if you have some like major flaw, like a physical one especially, that's easy to notice, then people are going to point it out. And instead of getting mad at them, try to look at the situation honestly. Are they talking shit because they don't like you and just trying to make you feel bad? Or is it because there's an obvious physical flaw in you that you're also insecure about? That's why when they say it, it triggers you. Because if it's something that you're insecure about and something within your control, then you should definitely work towards it, because not only will people no longer have the ammo to diss you, but the opposite will happen. People will start complimenting you and be like, damn, like how'd you get jacked, etc. But yeah, just a little rant. I think most people can recognize disrespect from jokes once you're adults. But I guess for food for thought, don't be too sensitive, but also recognize when someone's being disrespectful, especially when it comes to bodily harm.